Okay, good morning, world. It's about 8:45 on, 18th of May. You'd think I just remember what yesterday was, but I don't. Anyway, I was just kind of randomly staring at the trailer and I had some ideas for upgrades, so I made a note of that on a separate clip. But when I get up to Washington State, my stepbrother has a mechanic shop and my dad is up there, and I'm going to probably spend a few days there at least because I haven't seen my family for years. Yeah, run away, join the circus, that kind of thing. Anyway, so I was just kind of thinking about it and like, okay, if the trailer has survived that long as it is now, okay, who knows? No guarantees, but we'll just go with that. One, by the time I get there, I'm going to have a lot less stuff is the goal. Okay. What I would probably do though is like get rid of all the PVC pipe, all of the hose clamps, take the plywood section off, and build a simpler structure that just covers the panels, and then make a couple of adapter brackets that would correctly attach it to the top of the trailer, and where the diagonal comes down, and that diagonal, same thing, make another hard point basically that a simple strut could connect to it. I think a 1/2 inch conduit might be strong enough, steel conduit, because it would just be two pieces and then two diagonals on each side, right? That might be good enough. So something like that, maybe take a little bit of square stock and cut it up and make some brackets and then slide the conduit through it, something like that. A day with access to a welder, again, would go a long way here. So that's kind of the direction I'm looking at. The basic shape and size is working for me. But if I do that, I could make the whole thing completely flat, because right now it's got kind of a dip in the front and a swoosh up in the back, So it's not ideal, but it's going to work for now. After the sun trip, I don't worry as much about my miles again. On the end of this clip, or on the end of this video, I am going to have a image of the map that Suntrip is putting on their website. I think it's pretty close to what we're going to do, and I was laughing when I finally looked at it. Yeah, I'm on part of that route right now. Like, oh yeah, that day where it was really windy, we're going to be on that same road. Oh no. So then it's a matter of if we're going downwind or upwind. But the people I've talked to so far, they say there is a predominant wind that goes from the north of California to the south of California, just straight down the coast. So hopefully the route that we're taking for Suntrip is going to go down the coast and then back up inland, because inland you'd have more tree cover, possibly. Don't know. But yeah, it's some of the hard slogging that I've done. Yeah, I'll be seeing that again in a couple weeks. Yeah. He's like, no. At least I know what to expect, I don't know if that's better or worse. But I hadn't taken the time lately to look at the website to see what the route was. They rattled it off, but it was just abstract. When I read it the first time, I didn't really take the time to look at it too close. And then I kind of was thinking I'm going to be hitting some of it, so it was just funny when I realized that. Okay, so the sun trip itself, hang on. Right, okay, so the sun trip itself is at or about 500 miles in about 5 days, okay? And a few of the people that know the area have gone through and found the campsites and then set it up so it's roughly 5 equal days, approximately. There's probably going to be a long day and a short day just based on where the campsites are. We're not doing it as a race per se. It's more of a gathering event. So we're all going to just ride the same route, pretty much try to stay together unless you just can't make the miles. Okay, so that's the situation. So I've never done a 100-mile day on this setup. However, when I was back at home, the trip I did to the library a couple times, And that was like in December and January with one solar panel and the one-wheel trailer that I had just finished building, but no real load. And that was about 85 miles. Okay. So if I can, what I'm looking at is I'm not going to take all of what I've got on the sun trip. Okay. So we'll figure out, somebody that lives in the area will just stash all our extra gear. I think a few people are going to do the same thing. And just go really light for 5 days and then come back and put all your heavy gear on and complain about how heavy your gear is again. But that'll give me a good chance to really, really feel what I could do with a lighter load. Okay. Also, I'm still working on getting the arrangements made to get a new motor, which is going to be a lot more powerful. So I should have much easier time getting up the hills. It's going to be one of those things where a bigger motor just uses more power, but it gets you up the hill faster. So, right. The biggest advantage that I'm looking at for the setup I'm working towards, though, is I'm going to have I'm going to have less weight. Two, the new motor is going to have regen. Regen will give me some energy back from coming down the hill, but it'll also let me safely go down the hill faster because the motor is helping me brake. It's just like in your car, if you drop it into second gear at the top of a hill, the motor helps slow you down so you don't wear out the brakes. Okay. So the situation is on the current setup, yes, I've got disc brakes and they're wonderful, but I have such a heavy load, I'm overheating the brakes coming down the hills. Okay, so then I'm conservative, I'm coming down really slow, which is safe, that's good. But if I had a lighter load and could just kind of plan on where, if we're going to campsites every night, I know I can get water at the campsite, so I don't have to carry extra water. Okay. And some of the areas I know, so I know where I could stop and buy more Gatorade and Cliff Bars. So I don't necessarily have to do the whole trip with a week's worth of Cliff Bars. I know there's places all along the way. Okay. The organizer, I'm trying to decide, I think it sounded like somebody was going to be driving with us, or, if nothing else, just to get video of the trip. It sounded like some of the organizer people were also going to ride with us, so I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work out. It didn't sound like they were like, oh yeah, we've got a van, throw all your extra stuff in the van. We're supposed to be self-supporting for the most part, right? But there is going to be kind of a follow vehicle, I think, of some sort. So I'm not really sure the details there, but I don't think we could just say, okay, we'll all throw 100 pounds each of gear in a van, because the whole idea of this trip is to show we don't need a support vehicle. Okay. So that's kind of the idea. But yeah, some of these days that I've been on, it's like you're just grind first gear and using up all your battery going up the hill. You get to the very top, you think you can coast, and then you realize that the coming down is as steep as coming up was. So you don't really get to relax because you're slamming on the brakes all the way down, right? And without regen, you're just wasting all of that potential energy coming down the hill, and you're blowing it off in brake dust. With regen, you would get at least some battery charging coming down the hill, okay? Plus, if I can safely go down the hill faster, that would let me get a lot more miles in a day. Plus, I would get a little bit of energy back in the process of regenning down the hill. Okay. So overall, that would probably get me an extra 20 miles a day on some of these days because I was going so slow coming down the hill and stopping to let the brakes cool off. So less weight, go down the hill faster, get a little bit of energy back. It's, all of that's going to come together. So it'll be easier for me to do 100-mile days than it has been in the past. Okay. I have had 70-mile days with full load, but that was usually with a tailwind. If you have a headwind, you're looking at 50-mile days is really an accomplishment. But knowing that we have a lot of rolling hills, new motor, regen, that makes that a whole lot better. And then I'll just get rid of all of the heavy stuff. So I'm looking at, okay, for a shorter trip, I don't need as many tools, right? The bike is brand new. So I can take a lot of the stuff out that I was carrying, like a lot of the stuff that I used to actually build and modify the trailer. I'm going to need a little bit of it, but I don't necessarily need all of it, is kind of the idea. One of the things when I changed to the new trailer is I eliminated a whole bolt size. Some of the bolts that I had been using were, I think, 1/2 inch. What would that be? I think they were 3/8 bolts, if I remember right. So it's whichever size bolt, I always get this confused. It's like a 1/4 inch bolt uses, okay, don't even go there. Anyway, so I changed the bolt size, so I eliminated 1 wrench and 1 socket. Okay, that's a little bit. I'm probably going to take some of the wiring tools and some of the hand tools so I can fix things if they do come loose or something. I'll probably buy some more extra hose clamps so I can just kind of rig something together if it does break, kind of thing on the side of the road. That kind of a thing. So it's like just less water, knowing that I can resupply on some food, but it would be good to have something along. This will be a good experiment. Since we're going to campsites, I went on Walmart's website and found a medium small size tent and a sleeping pad, and will keep my sleeping bag but probably not take the cot, and just do that for a week and see how that goes. I'm hanging on to the cot because if you're camping not in campsites, the cot is really pretty handy. So, it's like if I want to throw it down on asphalt or gravel or whatever, I can. It's not a big deal. Where I would have to look for a place to put the tent that was, softer ground and not, asphalt. So, yeah, it's one of those kind of weird things. But so many of the places I've camped, the cot has worked out really well, so I'm reluctant to let go of it. And it's not super heavy for long touring, but if you're trying to make 100-mile days, I think I will have to let go of it for the short term at least. But that'll be a good experiment, see, do I like sleeping in the tent? I'm so used to sleeping in the open now, so we'll just kind of try it out. However, Oregon is going to rain most likely, so having a tent to keep dry in would be a nice option. Yeah, anyway, so progression of ideas as you experience and experiment, it's like, well, some of this is actually working pretty well. Great. Things I can tweak and so on. The other thing is I've been so focused on just getting here. Well, I'm within 100 miles, I think, now of Palo Alto. Palo Alto is basically in San Francisco area. It's just where the start and finish is actually going to be. We're going to be renting a house for a couple of days there at the beginning, and I don't think we have the house at the end. So we'll just hit the finish line, and then everybody goes off and does their own thing. So, yeah, anyway. So what I did is I broke the rest of the trip down, and I just kind of used really rough points for now, kind of like coming across. I said I was going to San Luis Obispo. I never actually went to the town, but it was a good reference point. I'm going in that direction, and then you go from there. So some of this I was looking at basically following interstate routes, but there's quite often secondary roads that are close to the same route. And one of the things I was looking at is if you look at the map of all of the western states, kind of the same strategies how I got here. Look for shortcuts that if you just go into a state and just catch the corner of it and kind of zigzag along, okay? So after Sun Trip, the next destination waypoint is Wenatchee, Washington. It's basically in the middle of Washington State. That was my home of record. My dad lives there. It's unremarkable, except it used to be where all the apples were grown. You'll still see Wenatchee labels on apples. I get Texas. I buy apples in Texas regularly, and quite often I'll see a Wenatchee label on the apples. Okay, so it's kind of cool, but otherwise it's just a little town in the on the Columbia River. Well, 50,000 people probably now, but it's unremarkable. Otherwise, you'd never hear of it. So what I'm going to do is go up. Okay, so here's a kind of a strategy that I'm looking at. I'm seeing how much of a marine layer clouds that we have here on the coast, right? And I kind of remember that, but it wasn't something I really thought about. I like the idea of riding up the coast because it's pretty, all right? And I'll probably do that as long as I feel like I practically can. But what I'm thinking, if I went closer to Highway 101 instead of Highway 1, get off of the coast 20 or 50 miles, it might be a different environment. I might have more sun and possibly even less wind. So one of the things I can do in the next couple of weeks or so, start looking at those wind prediction websites and see if I can see a difference in, because if you got a choice between on the coast, off of the coast, and way inland, maybe there's a huge advantage to going inland. Something else I learned already, going on the coast, it was very touristy and there was like no dollar stores or Walmarts in the whole time I've been on the coast, right, that I've seen. Maybe I missed them, but you run into a little town and they got it's a bar and a general store and a post office and a gas station all in one building kind of a thing. So they don't have as much selection, and Cliff Bars are $4 or $5 a piece instead of $1 if you can get a 12-pack at the Walmart or the Safeway now. So I hit the Safeway coming into it was Carmel by the Sea, I think, is where the Safeway was, and yeah, 12-pack of Cliff Bars was like basically $1 a bar, like what I'm used to. So what I'm looking at is if I get off of the coast and closer to the bigger roads, I'll see more dollar stores or Safeways or Walmarts that I can resupply in the quantity and the price that I'm used to. That could make a huge difference. Okay. On the flip side, the campsites are more likely close to the coast. Okay. But I'm so used to just stopping at a travel center or a truck stop or rest area or just in the ditch. On the coast is where the $1 million houses are with big fences and cameras and security systems. You really don't want to camp in their front yard, or if you're out in the middle of nowhere, you could have a house every mile. You could camp in the ditch and never bother anybody. So it's just kind of a different environment. So that's just something to kind of think about. How far do I want to stay on the coast? At what point am I going to go back towards if you find Highway 97, 97 actually goes all the way up into Canada. It's one of those rare highways that they kept the same number on both sides of the border. So 97 goes through Wenatchee and it comes all the way down into California. I remember it as mostly a 2-lane road, but it's probably a lot of 4-lane by now. But it's a well-traveled road that would have a lot of the, little stores that you're used to finding kind of thing. I think it goes through Klamath Falls and Bend, Oregon, that kind of thing, So I've driven it, not hundreds of times, but I've driven it a lot because when I was stationed in San Diego, drive up to see your dad kind of thing. It's like, I just do that drive all the time. So I kind of remember, it's not like I'm going to get lost on it or anything. But I haven't done it for a few years. So anyway, so what I'm thinking is I came up with I wrote these down in a notepad. So from Palo Alto to Wenatchee is about 850 miles. Now I'm going to probably deviate from that because I'm going to stay on the coast a little longer and so on, but we'll just say 850. Okay, then from Wenatchee, I'm going to go all the way across to, I wrote down Fargo, which is North Dakota, but it's right on the edge of, I think, Minnesota. So what I'm coming up with is, if I do a little bit of a zigzag, I can pick up all of the northern states and Wyoming without very much backtracking. once I hit Minnesota, then I can drop down and go all the way from, I'm basically following the route of the Mississippi, but I'm not necessarily going to get all the way east and hit the Mississippi. So I'm just going to hit all the Mississippi states. And because we hit 4 corners on the first leg, I've already got Colorado and Utah, the middle states. So I picked them up. That's why I went so far north in the first place. So I've got those done, so I don't have to come back and do them again. Okay. So we'll go from Washington, Idaho, Montana, and then there's kind of a couple little dog legs that if I drop down, pick up Wyoming, and then get back up and hit North Dakota and then Minnesota. So I think I'll come, Montana. I'm not looking at a map. I'm just trying to remember it. So Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, up into North Dakota, come across at Fargo, catch Minnesota, and then start dropping down. And then we'll come down a little bit. I don't remember all the states off the top of my head, but we'll kind of dogleg back, just catch the corner of Kansas, and then get back towards the Mississippi and catch all those states. Basically, then it's like, if I can get all the way down and pick up Louisiana, that's the 24th state. And then I'll just come through. What I'm thinking I want to do is the Gulf Coast, just so I could say I did it. What I remember, I did visit Corpus Christi one time, and I'm used to California, especially San Diego beach environment and LA. The Gulf Coast was super humid, and I honestly didn't want to spend any time there. So I'm going to kind of play that by ear. How far do I want to, do I want to follow the Gulf Coast? The other thing is SpaceX. I want to see their Boca Chica facility. I doubt that we're going to see anything happening. I mean, they were launching and testing rockets and motors and tanks quite often. I don't think I would probably be lucky enough to be in a position where you could see anything, but you can. It's on a public road, so you can just ride right past their facility. So I think that would be kind of cool to stop and get the bike picture right in front of the Starbase sign. And there's some of the rockets that they have already test flown and built are visible from the road, so you can just go get a picture like everybody's doing it. So that it would be right kind of in that same area. So then I could basically follow the Texas-Mexico border from the Gulf Coast. Big Bend is a famous national park. That would be a place that it's really pretty close to where I live, but I've never been there. So this would be the chance to go do that, and then come up through the back way, basically from I think Alpine, Van Horn, and then home, right? So I'm kind of going around the big mountain that is what used to be in the background of a lot of my videos. So I'd be kind of coming around that, and then hit the dollar store at Van Horn and stock up on food, and then go home. Yeah, okay. So first leg after the sun trip is Palo Alto to Wenatchee. That's 850 miles. And then Wenatchee across to Fargo is about 1,300 miles. And it's another 1,300 miles from Fargo down to Lake Charles, Louisiana. And then from there, it's 1,000 miles to home, roughly. And I was just punching in destinations, and Google would figure out the route for me. I'll probably deviate from that. Had a message pop up on the screen there. Anyway, so I'm not necessarily going to follow the route that Google used to calculate the miles. So anything that I do to deviate is going to make it slightly further, but it'll also let me pick up some of the corner states and get off of the freeways and so on. So after the sun trip, I've got about 4,500 miles left to go, and I've gone about 1,600 miles now. Again, not necessarily the exact route, but it's pretty close. So I kind of punched in from home to Four Corners, Death Valley, Bakersfield, to the coast, and then up to Palo Alto, and it was pretty close to the same route. So I've gone over 1,500 miles now. The Rusty bike and the first trailer both lasted about 1,000 miles roughly, and the trailer broke, and then a little bit later the Rusty bike fell apart. So that was I basically did a quarter of the trip on the old gear, and I'll do 3/4 of the trip on the new trailer and the new bike. Okay. So, based on what I can see, I'll probably end up wearing out the little trailer. But since I bought it at Walmart, I'm thinking other Walmarts will have a similar one available, so I'll just go get another one and then just either replace the broken parts or move all the parts over. And if I can build a couple basic brackets when I get up to Wenatchee, I should be able to just unbolt a couple things, drop the old trailer out, drop it on the new trailer, move the gear over, and we're good, right? So, yeah. That'll also be a good time to take the whole thing apart and see how it's doing, and see if I can make any easy changes. If I could put taller wheels on it, that would be a really big advantage. It might be a simple, looking at how they did it, if I could get a taller wheel with a through axle and then make a bracket in a different spot, then I could push the wheel a little bit further back. It might ride a little better if it was a longer wheelbase, that kind of thing. Anyway, I think that's basically it. I've wanted to do this for a while, just sit down and just, figure out the rest of the miles. I kind of, in my mind, had a picture, but I didn't have an exact route. Like, I do have a picture that I did a screenshot of the map where I just kind of did a zigzag line. That shows that, how I was going to do the order of the states more or less, but I'm actually going to deviate from that a little bit because I wasn't looking at actual roads when I made that map. I just had an outline of all the states, and I was like, okay, if I zigzag and hit all these states, but I didn't know where the actual roads were. The map I was working with, it just had the outline of the states, so it wasn't as good. But now I've got kind of a rough idea of, like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, is there any place that I'm going to have to, like, just say, okay, I'm here. If I ride a day and hit Wyoming and then backtrack, you don't want to backtrack if you can help it, but if it would save you going 300 miles a different way, yeah, you would backtrack. So far on this trip, I haven't really backtracked, with the exception, I guess, of when Frank and I drove back into Death Valley to pick up the trailer with the van, right? But that was, that kind of, it's not like a navigational backtracking. That's just a breaking down. I guess that makes a difference. I don't know. Anyway, so that's that. I just was looking outside. When I woke up this morning, I woke up at 5:30 and it's like 9 o'clock already. It was super cloudy outside, but the marine layer is finally gone. So I can roll the trailer out and get it charging. I think it got up to about 38, 39. My plan is to go camping for at least the next 2 days. There's a state campground on the beach. It's about 30 miles from here, but I'm going to zip over to the Walmart. I did order a tent that I'm going to try out on the beach camping site and see if I like it and get it figured out, so I'm not struggling to set it up the first time on the sun trip. And I figured if I tested a few days on the beach, that's about the same environment that I'll be camping in. And yeah, I think 2 of the campsites that I've camped in are on the list of where we're going. I'm pretty sure Big Sur was on there. So yeah, it's just kind of funny when I realized it after the fact. It didn't occur to me that I'm like, oh, I'll be here again. Yeah, so I'll know exactly how to get there. That'll be nice. And I saved some shower tokens. So I've got tokens for the shower when I get there. I was like, yeah, old hand at this. I know how long the shower runs. That'll be fine. So, yeah. Anyway, that's basically it. So I'm not necessarily in a big hurry because I know how far I'm going today, so I was just kind of like, well, I'll just take a little bit of downtime and figure things out, so that's what we did. Might do a little bit of video on the trip, but then I'll be getting to the beach, and so, yeah, it's literally 30 miles from here, so I'm in Monterey in a Motel 6, and so it's California State Beach campground, something, I forget the name, but 30 miles from Monterey. Yeah, on the ocean. So, yeah, that'd be that. I guess we can roll. This is the hard thing. It's like I walk in and I got stuff, spread all over here. I've only been here for 12 hours, and how does this happen? Yeah. Anyway, pick it all up and roll it out of here. Stay tuned.